Robert Zemeckis. I've liked Robert Zemeckis' work in the last couple of years. He did Flight. He did Allied. I liked those both a lot. Those were some of my favorite films of each of those years. The Walk, I wasn't too into, but it had some great moments. It had a lot of great special effects work done on it. And now we have Welcome to Marwen, which is based on a real character. Mark Hogenkamp was someone who was beat by neo-Nazis after he said he liked to wear women's shoes. And of course, you know, it was a hate crime. After he lost most of his memory, the only way he could perform his old art was through these dolls, and he would take pictures of them, and they were celebrated across the world. He became really famous for this. So then they made this movie to be about that character, and I thought from the trailer that it looked really interesting how they were going to tell this story. Robert Zemeckis doesn't seem to want to let go of the motion capture stuff that he did in The Polar Express and A Christmas Carol. He kind of brings it back here, and in this case I thought it made a lot more sense. The other times he would do animated films with motion capture, but he would have the characters look so human, I wouldn't quite understand what the point of doing it animated was. It would lead to complex situations that can only be done in animation, but why not do actual character designs? Here, all the motion capture is done to portray these dolls, and they're supposed to look like they're in the real world. So in that regard, it made a lot more sense, and I thought, hey, maybe we have something here. But really, the movie kind of blows. Right from the beginning, we already know what the character's going through. Yeah, he has PTSD. Yeah, he uses these dolls to get over it. But we never really dig into that too much. I thought that the dolls were going to relay his emotions a lot more. And at times it does, but for the most part, it seems that the dolls are trying to tell this entirely separate storyline. Sometimes the pieces can go on for almost 10 minutes at a time, and it doesn't really have anything to do with the story. There's a whole sequence about a milkmaid, and then she gets shot, and I just really don't know how to feel about that. Yeah, it can make that story in itself interesting with the dolls, but overall that has nothing to do with the emotions of Steve Carell's character. So what's the point of having them in there? It's a case where one story isn't really as interesting as the other, and even the story that is technically more interesting just isn't that great. When we see the character, everything has already happened. He started building Marwen, and he's already been beat up. He already has the PTSD. We're already there. We only go over the events once of what happened in the past, but it's done so subtly and barely shown that I kind of question why they decided to not focus on it more. Because we need to understand where this character is coming from. We need to understand how he got to this point to learn a little more about him. And we never really do. We also never really see the counterparts for all of the women characters in Marwen. We get glimpses of them, and about two of them we focus on a lot, but for the most part, we don't get much of anything from them. I really wish the movie would just tell the story of this guy from beginning to end, and if you're gonna jump around, at least jump around to those past events rather than jumping around to this storyline involving these dolls that isn't really interesting. I think the doll stuff could have been done well, and I think it could have shown up once in a while or been done in really quick sequences, but to basically be telling a whole separate incoherent storyline with these dolls was pointless, I thought. The movie basically is his struggle with PTSD over the course of what seems like a week, and how he ends up going to court for it and has to make a statement in order to get these guys to go to jail for a long time. That whole scene at the courthouse is done well, but getting there just seemed like a very slow-moving ride. There just wasn't enough story to fill up the 2 hours between him going to the courthouse and the beginning of the film. Leslie Mann shows up as a neighbor next door, and she has this whole issue with an ex that is not dug into at all, and she starts a relationship, well, a friendship anyway, with Mark, and this doesn't really lead to anything either. Mark ends up proposing to Nicole really quickly. Maybe this was done in real life, but the problem is, since we didn't really get to know much about his character and his issues, We never really understand why he does this. Yeah, I get it. He's a confused guy. He has a lot of issues. So, of course, he would do something like this. But why add that sentimental value to it as well, with all the flashbacks with the dolls? It just never really made sense to me, because Nicole is supposed to be this character that is there to help Mark along, and after that, she's done. It's not like she ends up being the main love interest. He thinks she's a love interest, but he discovers by the end, oh, she wasn't. But I never found any believability to any of that. I thought her character just wasn't developed enough. And even with that, a lot of the scenes between them can come across as really creepy. And that's too bad for our main character when this is supposed to be the guy we're rooting for, the guy we want to learn more about. And I gotta say, it seems like a lot of the actors just don't want to be there at times. Maybe they were all really busy. I mean, Steve Carell, he already did 2 other movies that were released this year. He did Beautiful Boy. He's going to be in Vice. So maybe he just was running out of time. But the whole concept of this movie just didn't work. It's too bad, because it's a concept I want to work. I think this could have been done really well with some editing and with some reorganization of the scenes and adding scenes about what actually happened to Mark, how he got to this point. That would have been great. But the movie's built more like a child's fantasy, but those fantastical moments have to be related to the real world. There is this witch character who's a doll, who is supposed to be the manipulative evil behind Steve Carell's ear. But that's really it. It's like, oh yeah, she's manifested in this doll. She is seen to have this Nazi symbol by the end, and that's the key for Steve Carell to know that she's bad and that she's been telling him all the wrong things. But that's not really manifested in real life or explained as a way to understand why he was hearing those things to begin with. Because I guess as an audience member you can kind of get it. Yeah, it's just his PTSD talking to him. It's what's inside his mind. Everybody has that. But why manifest it in this doll, and why not pay it off with something better than, oh, she had a Nazi symbol, so she's bad? It just didn't really make sense to me. I feel bad because Robert Zemeckis is one of my favorite directors. I always look forward to his movies. But this has to be one of the worst ones he's done. It just wasn't focused, and I think it could have worked. It's just this time it didn't. And for a director with his many years, with so many great films like Back to the Future and Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Forrest Gump, Castaway, Flight, I can understand if one of his ideas doesn't work out. Which is funny because this movie also does have a Back to the Future reference, very strangely enough. I don't know why that was there. The movie looks fine enough. The effects, I thought, with the dolls were done well. I just wish it would have been done a little bit differently, and I wish it would have been done more to relay his emotions rather than the storyline. So with all that, I sadly have to give Welcome to Marwen a 1.5 out of 5. So what did you think of Welcome to Marwen? Do you enjoy it? Are you hoping for Robert Zemeckis to be doing more films, or do you think maybe he's out of the game, should he stop? I don't think he should stop. I think he still makes plenty of good movies. This was just one misfire. It happens.
Thank you for watching the video. A special thanks to Movie Johnson, Ryan, and Lucas for supporting me on Patreon. If you'd like to be like them and get exclusive access to content and blogs, and even request reviews monthly, please click on the Patreon link, and thanks for your support.